not only does it control blood sugars, so when blood sugars go up, because you're not getting the signal that you're satiated and you keep eating those carbohydrates, and it doesn't get turned off, your blood sugar gets really not stable, and adiponectin levels actually get lower. When adiponectin levels, and adiponectin is a hormone signaling molecule, when they're increased, it actually signals the fat cells to stop dividing. So adiponectin stops the replication of fat cells. So fat cells, when they become too fat, and believe it or not, you can have fat cells, they actually start replicating themselves. 1 goes to 2, 2 goes to 4, 4 goes to 8, 8 goes to 16, and people become fatter. So adiponectin is a really good thing, and you want it high. When adiponectin is high, blood sugar is stable. When blood sugar is stable, inflammation is improved, and the fat cells stop dividing. Fat cells stop getting so fat. So the well-trimmed technology, as part of a lifestyle plan where you're changing people's food plans and you're adding this in, is going to stabilize metabolic markers in multiple areas. It's going to lower inflammation, it's going to increase adiponectin so fat cells don't get so fat and pinch themselves off and replicate. It's going to normalize blood sugar and inflammation, and it's going to help you feel satiated because it helps that leptin cross the blood-brain barrier. And so what we're finding, and this is newer research, is that people who have leptin that's not crossing the blood-brain barrier, or these high leptin serum levels, but there's a decrease in what we call leptin sensitivity at the receptor sites, have an increased risk of breast cancer. One of the major things that all women that come into my office fear is their personal risk of breast cancer. So bringing it back and bringing it back, putting the well-trim in is gonna lower your risk of breast cancer by a couple of mechanisms. It's lowering inflammation, and when you lower inflammation, you lower your risk of breast cancer. It's gonna normalize insulin and glucose levels, and high insulin and high glucose levels are pivot points for breast cancer. And again, it's gonna decrease that visceral fat, and that visceral fat, it's a feed-forward cycle, produces more inflammatory cytokines. So this one little product that's really easy to take and put in water, combined with a whole lifestyle plan, is gonna enhance your metabolism and normalize all of your metabolic markers that are associated with complex chronic disease, obesity being one of them, breast cancer being another, but all complex chronic disease. The other thing that well-trim inhibits is this G3-PHD, which is an enzyme that converts sugar to fat. So that's just another mechanism that's blocking the enzyme. So it's hitting it in multiple pathways. They've studied it. It was a 12-week study with 130 people, the average weight loss, and it's not about, excuse me, I just need some water. It's not about weight loss, it's about body composition. But they changed their body composition because you enhance the metabolic markers. The average weight loss was 28 pounds in the 12 weeks, and every 4 weeks, people were losing weight. It was going on and on. And to me, the most important thing was the reduction in inflammation and the normalizing of these biomarkers that we have difficulty normalizing. So very impressive. So this is the well-trim ingredient in the trim tea. The other thing it has in it is black tea. So black tea and green tea have these amazing polyphenols in them, and polyphenols are antioxidant. So as Dr. Z was talking about, inflammation and oxidative stress, or free radicals, damage the DNA. So believe it or not, a little bit of free radical actually drives the electron transport system and makes you produce more ATP, but too much free radical damage, or too many free radicals, actually inhibit the electron transport chain, and people don't make ATP and they have a decrease in energy. So you're beginning to see how all of these things are connected. Inflammation, too much oxidative stress, and metabolic markers that are out of balance, especially insulin and glucose. So you're gonna have a higher glucose and more inflammation, more diabetes, more weight gain, and the beat goes on. So all of these things are feedback loops that interact with each other. So sleep is primary. If people aren't sleeping, I'm not gonna get them better. I'm not, because that's a primary source and a primary driver or mediator for their complex chronic disease. So there is a product called Turn Down, and Turn Down is a really well-designed product for multiple reasons, and it's hitting the sleep problem in 3 different places. So there's latent sleep, which is difficulty falling asleep. So that's always the first question. You have difficulty falling asleep? Do you wake up in the middle of the night, or do you have poor quality sleep? And typically you'd have to reach for 3 different products, or you use hypnotics, which are horrible. Those are like your benzodiazepines that people get addicted to in about 5 days. That's a prescription, not a good idea. You're knocking out your 3 and 4th stage of sleep, which is restorative sleep. So I just want to say this about sleep to tell you how important it is, not that you're already not convinced, but when one sleeps, we have something called lymphatic flow, which is like a fluid that washes over your brain and removes, or like cleaning house, removes all the broken or dead DNA and all the proteins, removes it out of your brain so that you don't have inflammation in the brain. If you have inflammation in the brain, you could have depression, you could get anxiety, you're gonna get insomnia, you're gonna get neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's being one of them. So this particular product balances out the neurotransmitters and gives you the cofactors so that you can hit all 3 areas of sleep: quality of sleep, latent sleep, and interrupted sleep. And so neurotransmitters, they're not good or bad, but they're inhibitory and they're excitatory. And you want to balance. Sometimes you want excitatory neurotransmitters. Sometimes you want a lot of dopamine. Dopamine's a feel-good hormone. When things really make an impression, when you fall in love, dopamine is high. When something exciting happens to you, dopamine gets raised. It's a feel-good hormone. And most people are reaching for things and things they get addicted to because they get a little buzz of dopamine. So dopamine isn't a bad thing, even though it's excitatory, but if there's too much dopamine on board when you're trying to sleep, you're not gonna sleep correctly. When you're going to sleep, you want more inhibitory neurotransmitters. So those inhibitory neurotransmitters are more GABAergic. And so GABA is a big word, but GABA is where Xanax goes. So most people know it that way. When you take a Xanax, it's going into the GABA receptors. With women, the first hormone out of the chute and down low, just totally tanking, is progesterone. Progesterone is GABAergic. It goes into the GABA receptors of the brain. That's why one of the primary symptoms of perimenopause and menopause is insomnia. Because as progesterone drops first, not estrogen, you lose your GABA and you stop sleeping. Then when you stop sleeping, you have more cortisol and inflammation. When you have more cortisol and inflammation, you get more hot flashes. When you get more hot flashes, you stop sleeping. When you get more inflammation, you get more weight gain. And the beat goes on. By the time people come to see me, they have about 8 or 9 different symptoms of menopause, most of which can be backtracked back to an imbalance in the neurotransmitters from not sleeping and the change in the distribution of the hormones. So I give hormones, but I prefer not to if I can get away with it. If I can get away with giving people products to balance out all of these symptoms instead of throwing hormones, that there's always some risk to hormones, no matter how low your family history and your personal risk is. So this is a great product to get people sleeping. And so how this product is working, this turn down, and there it is. It's working on all 3 mechanisms. But it's working, it's giving you an amino acid called L-tryptophan. And L-tryptophan gets converted to 5-HTP. 5-HTP gets converted to serotonin. Do you guys know what serotonin does? Is that a feel-good hormone or not a feel-good hormone?
Feel good.
Yeah, when you take Prozac, well, not when you take it, but Prozac and all those SSRIs, I'm not saying you're taking that, but what they do is they stop the reuptake of serotonin. They don't make you make more, they stop you from absorbing it. And so serotonin, most people don't know this, but it's involved with the deeper sleep cycles. So people who have low serotonin levels actually don't sleep well. So L-tryptophan, which is an amino acid, and it needs cofactors like B3, which is niacin, calcium, magnesium, and zinc, needs to be converted to serotonin and then to melatonin so that people can, number one, fall asleep with melatonin, and number two, stay asleep with serotonin. Serotonin is intimately involved in the sleep cycles. So this product is hitting all of those things. It's got some vitamin C, it's got magnesium. What do you think the number one deficiency is in America in micronutrients? Magnesium. Magnesium is a cofactor for hundreds of enzymatic reactions in the body. And it is not only neuroprotective, but it's neurocalming. It calms the nervous system, it calms the muscles, it enhances sleep, and it's a cofactor in this production of L-tryptophan to serotonin to melatonin that's so essential for sleep. So there's magnesium in here, there's niacin or B3. And again, niacin is in here as part of a cofactor, but it also, on the back end, having a little niacin. Niacin is essential for the electron transport chain to drive it to produce ATP, which is energy. So it's helping you sleep, but it's also on the back end when you wake up, it's giving you more energy. And it's one, again, one of the major deficiencies that we see. Calcium is in here, and calcium is a cofactor, and B6 is also in here, and B6 is another cofactor necessary for these elaborate conversions to be made. So they've positioned this product really nicely, so they're letting your body do the conversions, but they're giving you all the different cofactors to make that happen, and they're giving you enough and not a synthetic version of the amino acid L-tryptophan so that you can actually make serotonin and make melatonin and sleep. So in closing, decrease inflammation will enhance metabolic health, and if you're not sleeping, inflammation goes up. Thank you.